All right, so after working with the clay, you're likely to have a lot of small pieces like this. And they might be a little bit dried out, which is fine. You might need to add a little bit more water to your clay. But we want to, when we're storing our clay, we want to make sure that we are putting it all back together, because the less surface area that the clay has, the slower it's going to dry out. Okay, so we're going to put it together into a clump. Okay, the problem with this, however, is that the inside of this is going to be filled with air bubbles, and air pockets in clay are really, really, really bad, because when we put it into the kiln, it's trapping those air bubbles inside the clay. And we know from science that as molecules are heated, they start moving faster and faster, and they want to spread out and move away from each other. But if the air is stuck inside the clay and the temperature of the kiln is going from about 25 degrees Celsius, which is a nice warm day, up to about 2000 degrees, then those molecules want to get farther and farther and farther apart. And if they are stuck inside, what's going to happen is they're going to actually pop the clay, right? And in some cases, it can kind of even explode. So when we stick those pieces of clay together, right, we're going to end up getting these kind of like weird air pockets, right? And those air pockets are really, really bad. Okay, so we have a special process called wedging that we are going to use in order to remove the air pockets from our used clay. Okay, so I'm going to put it together all as a ball, and we're going to wedge the clay. Okay, so we're going to kind of create like a butterfly with our hands, right, with our thumbs close together. And you're probably going to want to be standing to do this, because you're going to use your back and your shoulders to do the work, right? This isn't easy if you're only using your wrists and your forearms. Okay, so the way that this has been described to me, right, is very much like kneading pasta dough. My wife's Bees Nona loves making pasta, and we would often watch her knead the dough to get it to be the perfect consistency. So the action is kind of like that, and I've also been told that it is very similar to the process of making roti. Okay, so what I'm going to do, butterfly hands, I'm going to then push down into the table and then push away from me very, very gently. And then I'm going to flip this clay back up, and I'm going to repeat that process. Butterfly hands, push down with my hands, and then also a little bit away, and roll. And I'm going to repeat that a few times. All right, so it's a together, down, and away. Together, down, and away. Together, down, and away. All right, it's going to then change its kind of shape. It's going to come up and down like this. So I'm going to go now in the opposite direction, repeating that butterfly hands and pushing down and away, down and away, down and away. Okay, and again, rotate, and I'm going to do this for just a couple of minutes. If you feel like your clay is getting really dried out, just put a little bit of water onto your hands and massage the water into the clay, right? Because the water is going to keep the clay malleable so that you can continue to work with it. As the clay dries out, it becomes really, really hard to use. Okay, so once I've gone through and I've wedged the clay, I'm going to go back to my cutter, and I'm going to again just put the clay on top and gently pull up. And if I've done this correctly, right, I'm gently pulling the clay apart, and it's not opening up anywhere, and that means that I have wedged the clay properly and it's ready to use. Okay, so I'm going to again squish it together, and I'm going to wedge it one last time. So every time you are done working with clay, this is something that you are going to need to do. You're going to need to wedge it so that the clay doesn't dry out, that it doesn't have air bubbles, and it's ready for your next work session with the material. All right, have a good day, guys. Good luck, and if you feel like you need some assistance, in figuring out how the kneading actually works, make sure that you're asking, okay? Take care, guys. Bye.